Alright people, we're going to have a pretty technical video here today, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at the effects of neck relief on the action of a guitar. Let's define some terms before we do anything here. Action is the distance the string has to go to touch the fret. It's commonly, when people call it action, they typically are talking about the 12th fret action. So, that's the open strings action, which is, your playability. But action can be any distance. So you could talk about the action at the first fret. Relief is in itself an action. So it's common for people to say, oh, my action is too high, my action is too low. They go to a guitar shop and they sometimes adjust the relief. That makes the string go up off the fingerboard. But what we want to look at today is what does that actually affect. So just because your string comes off the fingerboard, what does that mean? So in other videos I have done this thing where I put something under the fret, up under the nut right here, and I raise the string up off of I raise the string up, making essentially a higher nut. That will cause the action to go up. So what? Does it reduce buzzes? Does it reduce, what does it do besides make the string harder to push down to the fingerboard? So the question we have to ask here is not really the action per se, but we need to look at things like the next fret distance. And the next fret is a term that, I don't know, I came up with. It seems to make sense to me. If you fret, let's say we fret the 3rd fret here. What is the clearance at the 4th fret? Okay, that's the next fret. Because that's going to be one that's important for buzzing. You got to also consider the action on down here, down the line. So if you fret the 3rd fret, what happens up here at the 7th fret, the 9th fret, that kind of thing. Because as I explained in one of my other videos, you've got nodes going on. And the point of maximum amplitude, that is the point at which the string vibrates at its most, is going to be roughly halfway between where it stopped here and where it starts here. So when you strike the string at this distance, it sets up nodes, and the point of maximum amplitude is going to be somewhere halfway between here and here, roughly. And the closer you come back here to the bridge, the smaller the nodes you set up, so the more buzz-proof your guitar is going to be. If you come up here, 3rd fret, and you come up here and strike the string, you start these big wavy nodes, and so your point of maximum amplitude shifts to somewhere up in here. So the next fret is not a cure-all, but I think it's the important thing. Most of the time, people will find a buzz right in front of that fret that they're on the fret, right in front of the fret that they're fretting. The next fret is generally, I think, the most critical one. Okay. In any case, your relief isn't going to change anything up in here because your relief is happening in the middle of the neck. So, you got all that? So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this guitar, which has a very flat neck relief right now. I used it in my previous video. And the reason we're going to play with this is because the action is really low right now, and the saddle is exactly where I want it. I don't want to put a taller saddle in there just right now. We're going to play with the neck relief a little bit and see what happens to the action and to the next fret. So, okay, got it? That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to write my measurements down here on this piece of paper, and then I will try to pop them on the screen as we go along so that you can keep a record of it. And then I'll try to have a summary down at the end. We'll find out what we got here. So I'm going to put a capo here on the 1st fret so we can check the neck relief again, because I haven't looked at this guitar since I did that. Okay, that's pretty flat still. I mean, that's flat enough. I'm going to go ahead and take it right down to the fret. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten it just a little bit more. Remember how I did this? I got a little weight on the back right here just to hold the guitar down. I'm going to put pressure on the nut to pre-stress the neck. And it's not going to take much. I've got to get on the other side of the string. It's not going to take much. So here we go. And I already previously lubed the nut here, so I know it's going to move freely. Okay, there we go. We're almost on the fret now. So I'm going to write down the relief, and I'm going to write down the action. And then we're going to look at the next fret on, we look at it here at the second fret because there's a capo on the first fret. So we look at the first fret, and I'm going to take off big chunks here because I personally have already done this on the guitar using every single note and things like that. We're just going to take off some bigger chunks here. So we're going to look at what would be the open string because of the capo. So the second fret, and then we'll come up here and we'll fit the fret, the fifth fret. That's hard to say, the fifth fret. And then we'll take a look at, say, the 12th. So, second, fifth, 12th. Pretty big jumps there, okay? So our relief right now, I'm really going to try to measure accurately here because I know this is a critical point here. So put the guitar up here. I'm going to fret right here at the 13th fret. I'm going to measure at the 5th, 6th fret. Okay, a 0.3 feeler gauge is causing that string to move. So we have less than that. Let's call it 0.2, okay? It's a little bit more than nothing. So I don't think it's 1, and it's a little more than nothing, but it's a little bit less than 3, so it's pretty flat. See if I can get a better measurement here. Let's go to the double dot. No, let's see. No, we need the 6th fret. Yeah, I'm confident with that 0.2. It's just barely moving that string. Take capo off. Measure the action at the 12th fret. And I think it's going to be around 76 if I remember. I'll put this out. You got padding there. Good. Yeah, 76 thousandths. That might not be exactly what it is, but it's consistent for me. So I saw just a tiny little bit of air in between there. So, you know, it might, if you used a laser, it might actually be 7.5. I'm sorry, 7.7. But 7.6 clears with just a little bit. Okay, now we're going to put capo back on here. We're going to measure our next fret clearances. So at the first fret, we've got, put out a couple of feeler gauges here. First fret, second fret, more than 6. I'm not sure what the measurement's going to be, you know, so I'm kind of working our way around here. I don't think 12 is going to clear, but let's see. 12 clears, a little bit more space. Let's try 13 and 14. Let's try 14 first. 14 looks really good. So first fret, second fret. Actually, I'm going to write it down according to the name. So the first fret, and then the next fret clearance is going to be 2. It's easier for me to keep this straight in my head. So first fret, fretted. And it was 0.14. Then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to fret at the 5th fret. And our clearance is very small. Maybe 8. 5th, 5th fret. Yeah, I think 8 looks really good. It's not moving. So 0, 0, 8, and then the 12th. What do we have up here at the 12th? I'm going to fret the 12th, and I'm going to check it. So this is basically the body fret, you understand. You know, the heel's in the way, the body's all right here. So fretting at the 12th, we're going to look at the clearance over the 13th. And 08 does not go. Almost goes. Not quite. Let's try 6. I can feel it sticking. So let's go down to 4. So there's 3. I'm missing my 4. I got a 5 and I got a 3. Five is good. 5 clear. So 5/1000ths of an inch. So the first thing that we learn from this is that you have 18 here, and 8 here, and 5 here. So as you fret going up the neck, your clearance will go down, and that's logical. Okay, that's how you can extrapolate to figure out exactly how high your nut slot should be if you wanted to measure it. So if we know that with the capo on right here, that the clearance right here is 14, then that means if you take this capo off and you measured the first fret right here, you ought to be looking at about 16, maybe 18/1000ths of an inch. Now, that's a scientific, technical way to get your nut height exactly right. A quicker way, you know, and a perfectly good way, of course, which I'll explain in other videos, you just fret between the 2nd and the 3rd fret, and the string ought to just barely clear the 1st fret. And I mean barely. Like if it just kisses that fret, then you're perfect. Let's measure that open string just to see how good we are, because I know I've got it set where I want it. And I usually set it just maybe a 2/1000ths of an inch higher to allow for a little bit of wear and neck movement, things like that. So I said 14, and let's see what we got. Here's a 16 and an 18. We're going to measure the open string. $18 just almost does it. 16 clears, so we are actually in between 16 and 18, which is exactly what I predicted. So, you know, I know I'm confident, having done thousands of these nuts. We're good. Okay, now we're going to change one thing. We're going to change just one thing, and that is we're going to adjust the relief right now. So we have 2/1000ths of an inch of neck relief right here, and I'm going to loosen this up some. I'm going to go ahead and take off some pretty big chunks here, you know. So we're going to loosen it about that much. We increase the relief. Let's find out what our relief is. And we started at 2/1000 there, so I know we got to be more than that. Now, here, check it at the 6th fret again. We got 6/1000ths of an inch of relief. You know, which is not bad. You can work within some parameters. There's no magic number here, other than the fact that 20/1000ths is too much, and for me, you know, 12 to 14/1000ths is too much relief. I feel that spongy mid-neck feel. I'd be very happy with 6/1000ths of an inch of relief. We're going to see what it does to the action now. So let me write that down. 0.006. All right, what's our action at? Actually, we can go ahead and measure this now while I have the capo on. We started out at 14. We'll come back and we'll review this, but since I have the capo on, let's see what we have here. Okay, that's a little bit higher. 16 maybe. I like 16. Okay, so we got 0.02 of an inch more clearance here at this second fret than we had before. We got 0.04 of an inch more relief, 0.02 of an inch clearance here. Let's see what we find over at the 5th fret. Fret the 5th, measure the 6th. Eight, maybe 9. You know, let me look at that again. I'm going to call it 9 because I see just a little bit of air, but the 10 didn't go. The 8 had a little bit of clearance and the 10 did not go, so we're going to call it 9. So we increased 0.01 of an inch. That's pretty fine, considering the middle of the neck went up 0.04. And then we're going to see what the action does. That's going to be interesting. Okay, what do we have up here up the neck? At the 12th fret, what is the clearance at the 13th? That ain't going to go. That's an 8. Sixth is pushing it. We're back to the 5. 0.05. Same as before. Okay, so far what's happened, we increased the relief, so that would make it a little bit harder to play in the middle of the neck. We gained a little bit of clearance, 0.02 of an inch, right here. We gained 0.01 of an inch here, and we gained nothing here. So you see that's a cone going back down. So increasing the relief did not change this one bit yet. There's just some more tricks here. Let's see what the relief, what our action is. So we started with 76. We are way clear of 76 now. Let me show you. This is the 76, and I'm going to put it in here, 12th fret. Hear that? Got a lot more than 76. Let's go to 84. More than 84. Let's try 90. Because that's what I'd like for it to be. Tiny, tiny, tiny. We're going to call it 92. Okay, so we increased the relief by 0.04 of an inch. That increased the clearance up here by 0.02, 0.01, and nothing. It increased the action from 76 all the way up to 92. That's pretty dramatic for a very small, 0.04 of an inch. 0.04 of an inch relief. Here's a 5, okay? Here's a 3. I mean, that's paper thin, you know? In fact, it's literally paper thin. I think paper's about, well, let's not guess. Hold on. Oh, I got one right here. I got my new fancy free gift from Stu Mac. This little carbon fiber. And who knows how accurate this is. Here's a piece of paper. Digital caliper. Piece of paper, 2.5 thousandths. Let's call it 3. Piece of paper is 3 thousandths of an inch. So we increased the relief slightly more than a sheet of paper. And yet it went up, the action went up 4 to 80 plus 10 is 14, 16 thousandths of an inch. Let me say that again. We increased the relief by 4 thousandths of an inch. The action at the 12th fret went up by 16 thousandths of an inch. Wow. That's dramatic. The only place we got more clearance was right up in here, and that was immediately on the next fret. Now, there's a trick coming up here. What happens if you fret in the middle of the neck with it open? If the middle of the neck, what is the clearance going to be up here at the 12th fret, or actually the 13th fret? Okay, I told you this was going to be technical. You got to stick with me here. So, given this number right now, by the way, this is where I would leave this guitar right now, because 6 thousandths of an inch is pretty good. I mean, I think that's perfectly playable. You know, perfectly playable right here. The neck feels really good. It doesn't feel like a high mid-range. I'd have no problem with that whatsoever. 90 thousandths of an inch right here, which is kind of the action you're shooting for. But it's funny, because we didn't gain all that much in the next fret clearance. So mostly it's going to be right here with the immediate next fret. So you got a little bit more clearance on the immediate next fret. That's a good thing. What happens up in here? Da 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 da. Here's the drum roll. Okay? So we're going to find out. So I'm going to measure this right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put this capo on here to make my life easier. We're going to put the capo on the 5th fret, and we're going to go to the 7th fret. I'm going to put this capo up here at the 7th fret. So this is if you were fretting the note right here. Okay, capo's on the 7th fret. That's me fretting the note. What is the clearance at the 13th fret? Let's find out. You see the difference between this? Previously I was measuring just the next fret. Now I'm measuring it when it's fretted here. What's the clearance up here? Okay? So let's see. That looks like about 16, 18, 20 maybe. Let's start with 20. Capo's right here on the 7th fret. I'm going to measure up here at the 13th fret. Oh yeah, it's clearing that real big. I got to get bigger than that. Let's try 60. No, too much. Back off. Oh, nice. Okay, we've got, here's an easy way to do this. We've got 20 and 18, so that's 38. So at this one, I'm going to fret 7th, and then measure 13th. With the action at 92, we've got 38 thousandths. This is really going to be a more critical measurement, I think. Okay, anybody else? I'm going to measure what I'm here. I think that's good enough. That's going to show us what's happening up here. Now we're going to go back and we're going to take some relief back out again. Take us back where we were. There's a bird outside my window. Let's see. Sand back up here. There we go. Okay, we're going to take that relief back out. Pre-stress it. I got to go to the next string. Should be pretty close. We started at 2 thousandths of an inch. So basically I got to make sure that the 3 does not clear it. Here, 6th. A little bit more. That's it. Double check our action. And it should be about 76. Tiny bit more. Let's go back. A little bit more. I like it. Alright, we're going to put the caper back up here on the 7th fret right here. So let's go through this right now, what we got here. We've got an almost perfectly flat neck. We've got a much, much lower action. What, 18 thousandths of an inch? Flat neck, very low action. What is our 13th fret measurement going to be here? We're going to just start at the 38 I used before. See if it's higher or lower now. 13th fret. Okay, so this proves what I've been trying to tell you guys all along. So here's the same 38 thousandths of an inch. We have almost perfectly flat neck, 2 thousandths of an inch of relief. We have an action of 76 thousandths here, which is 16 thousandths of an inch lower than it was before. Got a little less clearance on these frets, but up here at the body, it's higher. So here's the same 38 thousandths. We're going to drop it up here, and listen. Clearance. Not much. You got about 2 thousandths of an inch clearance, but we lowered the action with the truss rod, flattened the neck, lowered the action, and got more clearance up here at the body. You would expect it to go down because the action went down. So, but it didn't. And that proves what I've been trying to demonstrate, what I've been trying to tell everybody about a flatter neck. It will reduce the immediate next fret clearance, but it increases the clearance up here in the middle of the neck, the middle of the node, and that's where the point of maximum amplitude, that's the highest place the string goes up and down. The point of maximum amplitude is right up in here. No matter where you play, no matter where you fret, it's in here somewhere. You got a higher clearance at that point of maximum amplitude. So you might get a buzz on that next fret. I mean, you could get a little bit too low to where it was buzzing on this fret, you know. And so you would increase your relief just a little bit in order to get a little bit more clearance here without sacrificing this too much. Now, my approach would always be, in this case we did one variable only, and that was just the relief. My approach, personally, would be to set that thing flat as could be and adjust the saddle. The only reason that I'm even messing with relief here is because that saddle is already where I want it, and I don't really want to go any higher. I could, you know, I'm not ruling that out yet, but I like the looks of that saddle. Let's see how tall it is. And I might change my mind right here on the screen. First of all, I got to make sure this is a new gauge for me. Yeah, it measures it like that. That's not 2000, that's not 219. It's because of this thing. Let's see. Yeah, you got to recalibrate this to the end here. Right, I hate gauges that do that. See, the gauge starts back here. This is the first time I've done this with this gauge. The gauge starts back here, so you got to get it out here to the end, like that, and you got to recalibrate it, which is not a big deal. But that's why I like the mechanical gauge better, because it starts at the end, so you don't have to do all that. So let's go to my bench. Put that flat on the bench. And then we're going to zero it out. There we go. $135. That's not that bad. I thought it looked higher than that. You know, I wouldn't mind going 145 on that saddle. I like 135. 135 is perfect. But it would not hurt anything for me to go up about 0.10 of an inch on this saddle. Okay, so here's where our math gets good. I can leave the neck flat, 0.02 of an inch relief, but let's just go 0.04 of an inch relief, okay? Let's split all these numbers. 0.04 of an inch of relief. That's going to put the action at roughly, I bet it puts it at about 0.84 of an inch, which is not bad. I mean, that's a nice action, man. That's an action. You can put swing cords all up and down the neck. That is a cushy action. But let's just say it goes to 0.84 of an inch, and I raise the saddle by 0.10 of an inch. That's going to increase the action down here by 5, half of it, right? I go up 10 here, it's going to raise the action by roughly 5 thousandths. So we're going to go from 86 to 91. Perfect. 91 thousandths of an inch, 3/32 of an inch, just a smidgen under. And I expect the top to rise a little bit because I messed with the scalloping a little bit. So yeah, I think that's the best thing. You know, I hate to go make another saddle. You know, maybe I'll just toss this in the case for the owner and say, here's your jazz saddle. So I wouldn't mind doing that. Saddle's not a big deal. This is just roughed out right now. So that'd be my approach, okay? Guy paid me money to do this right. And I think the right thing to do here is to set the neck relief at 0.04 of an inch, which is pretty low. Pop that saddle up by 0.10 of an inch. It's going to get a little bit higher saddle. And it's going to have great clearance up here because I have now increased the saddle, which is going to give him even more clearance up in here, more neck fret clearance. So it's a win-win situation all the way across the board. That is the best option, in my humble opinion. And that's what I'm going to do on this guitar, because that's the best option. It's not that big of a deal to make a new saddle, throw this into the case, and like I said, then he's got a jazz saddle, or he's got a summer saddle, or whatever you want to, you know. He's got another saddle. So that's the best option. But what I'm trying to get to you here in conclusion, it's not a great idea to crank in relief to raise the 12th fret action, because when you do that, you're going to mess up. You're going to result in the same or even lower action up in here on the body, because once again the neck is at angle. And so let me get my yardstick. I know I've repeated these things many times, but sometimes people are popping into this video for the first time and they haven't gone back and reviewed my other 450 videos in which I talk about this a dozen times already. So I'm going to go through it again here real quickly, as quickly as I can, being that I talk too much. Your neck is on the body at an angle. So that means that when you have neck relief, and plus you can see the ruler this time. Last time I was blocking it with my body, which I didn't realize. When you get neck relief here, it does not come up like this. You see, that's causing a bend right here. That doesn't happen. What happens is it compresses like this. So that when you fret a string down here in the middle, it's got to clear this area right here. You can imagine, I don't have enough hands here to demonstrate this, but if you imagine pushing the string down to here, it's got to come up and it's got to clear this hump right here. You see? If your neck was on straight, like this, and you gave it relief, it would all come up. But it doesn't work that way because your neck is on the body at an angle. So it comes like this and compresses. Because also the angle that that's pulling does not come up straight. See, I've God, it's just physics, okay? The force vector that I'm using here right now is a 90-degree upwards angle. So that's going to, yes, that's going to cause the yardstick to come up. Your actual force vector is this way. So it's pressing this way, and it causes a compression effect. You see? It does not lift up. The force vector is going this way because that's where the strings are. So you're here, and here's your string, and so your force vector is causing this way, which pulls that neck in and causes it to buckle downwards and causes a dip in the neck, not a rise up in here. That dip in the neck, when you fret in the middle of the neck, reduces the clearance up here. Okay? It's just physics and geometry. That's all it is. But I think a lot of people, I've seen drawings illustrating neck relief, and I would say 95% of them are wrong because they don't put the neck on the body at an angle. And it's on the body at an angle, even on an electric guitar like a Telecaster or Stratocaster. If you've ever worked on one of those, you know that a lot of times you have to put a shim under the neck heel to kick that angle back a little bit, because the bridge has got a height. Anytime you have a height of any kind of bridge and saddle, you're coming off the face of the guitar, and the neck has to go backwards to compensate on that. The higher the bridge, the higher the saddle combination, the more neck angle you're going to have to get, and the worse relief is going to be on that neck. All right, think about it. Okay, but I say, I may have seen one correct illustration where they got the neck on the body at an angle. Yeah, it's just one of those things when you sit down and you draw it on paper and you don't think about it, you don't realize what's going on. You know, is your drawing an accurate representation of the actual thing? All right. So let's go through this again, okay? And I'm going to put a diagram up on the screen. And what do we have here? We also had zero. We had about 40 thousandths because I had a little bit more clearance, so I need to make sure I write that down. So we started with the neck relief. The only thing we changed was neck relief. That was our only variable. One variable at a time. Neck relief. When I set this up properly, I'm going to use two variables. I'm going to do the neck relief, and then I'm going to do the saddle. But in this case, one variable, neck relief. We started with 2/1000ths of an inch. We had an action of 76 thousandths. Our first fret clearance was 14. Our fifth fret was 8. And our 12th was 5. Went down. When we fretted at the 12th fret, we had a clearance of 40 thousandths of an inch at the 13th fret. Then I increased the neck relief, and only the neck relief, to 6 thousandths of an inch. 4 thousandths of an inch. I tripled it. Okay? From 2 to 6. We tripled it. 6 thousandths of an inch, which is still perfectly good. Perfectly good. Our action went up dramatically to 92 thousandths of an inch. Our first fret went up by 2 thousandths of an inch to 16. Our fifth fret went up by 1 thousandths of an inch to 9, and our 12th fret stayed exactly the same, at least as far as I could measure. It certainly didn't go up dramatically or down dramatically. 5 thousandths cleared beautifully. When we fretted at the 7th fret, we had less clearance at the 13th fret to the tune of 2 thousandths of an inch, which is not a big deal, but it's something, okay? So the flatter neck, less relief, gave us a dramatically lower 12th fret, and it gave us a lower action over the entire neck because of that, the more consistent action over the entire neck, and it gave us not much less next fret clearance, more clearance up the neck. So, okay, we can stop here. Now, I'm going to do 2 more things here, and if you're really interested in this stuff, you can stick with me and you can watch this, and we'll play with a couple more things here that I think are important. In fact, I might even splice this before my conclusion. What happens to the playability at the middle of the neck when you increase the relief? Okay, that's my question. What happens to the action? What happens to the action at the... Where we go? Let's go to the 7th fret because there's dots. So, no, we'll go to the 6th. It's 12, yeah. 12 here. What happens to the action of the 6th fret open when I change the relief? Okay, that's our hypothesis. No, we don't. That's not a hypothesis. That's our question. Our hypothesis is reduced relief will result in reduced action. Seems logical. Let's test it. But we want to know how much. You see. All right. So we've got, here's our guitar. We've got 76 thousandths of action. Let's check it again. I like it. How's it move? So that means we still got 2 thousandths of an inch relief. What is the action at the 6th fret? 76, 6th fret. Action at the 6th fret. So this is what it's going to feel like when you're playing in the middle of the neck. So you're doing swing chords. On a mandolin, you play these chords up here in the middle of the neck all the time. But basically on a guitar, you'd be doing swing chords up in here in the middle of the neck. Bar chords maybe, you know, if you're playing in A, playing rock and roll in A, you know. Bar chord in the middle of the neck. That's going to affect this feel. So 6th fret right here. And we've got less than 76, which makes sense, doesn't it? Let's drop off to here. Sixth fret. Okay. A little less than that. A little less than that. I'm going to drop that 18 to a 14. 6th. Yeah, I got it on my shoulder, but that's consistent, and I don't see the string moving, so it's okay. I'm not putting any pressure on. I'm just letting the guitar rest on my shoulder. Barely moving the string. In fact, this feeler gauge has got a little bit of a bump in it that I can see. We're going to go with this spec. And this would be, it's easier to do it this way, 53. We've got 53 thousandths here. Now I'm going to increase the relief so that we end up with an action of 92 again. Also, I'm loosening it right now, so I'm not really bothering to pre-stress much because I'm loosening that nut rather than tightening it. Let's see what we got. It's just fun. I mean, it takes a long time to do this, and like I said, I've done this many times where I measured every single note. I mean, it took me all day long, but I wanted to know. 92. Up here, we just double check our relief to make sure we're at the same spot roughly. And we should have about 6 thousandths of an inch of relief. There's my 6. These are well worn feeler gauges. And we're going to fret here, and we're going to measure the 6th fret, which is right there. Looks good. Looks good. We replicated it. This is why I measure stuff. Sometimes I get critics who say, oh, it's all about the feel. It is about the feel. I mean, that is the bottom line. But if you were to disassemble this guitar, you know, again, I've said this before. I watched Mark Kendricks, I think, from Fender Guitars. I watched a thing where he disassembled Marty Stewart's Telecaster that was owned by Clarence White. And do you think when Mark put that guitar back together, I mean, he took it down to the last bolt. Do you think he put it together just by feel again? you know? He doesn't know what the guitar feels like, and he definitely doesn't know what Marty Stewart likes. So I guarantee you I would measure that sucker. I read a great interview by Rene Martinez, who was Stevie Ray Vaughan's guitar tech. And he talks about the time that Stevie Ray first walked into the guitar shop in Dallas. I've got the book over here. What's the guitar shop in Dallas? It'll come to me. He walked into the guitar shop in Dallas, and Rene measured. He measured stuff because he said, I want to be able to go back to where we started from. That's the value of measuring. You can go back to where you started from. When I work on my dirt bikes and I mess with the compression and the rebound settings, I record where I started from. Because if you just totally get screwed up and lost and it's not working the way you wanted it, you go back to your starting point and you can start all over again. That's the value of measurements. And so if I ask somebody what's your neck relief, and they tell me, 30 thousandths of an inch, but who cares? It's about the feel. Well, first thing I'm going to do is relate that 30 thousandths of an inch to what I know about guitar necks and say, well, gosh, that's a lot of relief, you know. You might want to consider dropping to 10 and see what you think, you know. And when you drop to 10, raise your action up, which is exactly what Rene Martinez did to Stevie Ray Vaughan's #1 Stratocaster the first time at Charlie's Guitar Shop. The first time it walked into Charlie's Guitar Shop. So, I think every really good tech that I know of, that I respect, you know, Dan Erlewine, gosh, his books are full of measurements. Rene Martinez, Mark Kendricks, you know, those guys, they're capable of measuring. Yes, it's about the feel. And if you have a valid reason for preferring a feel over a specification, that's cool. But then what I would do as a guitar tech is I would find, okay, you like this feel, and then I'm going to measure that feel, and I'm going to record it so that I have that down for prosperity, and I know starting point. For example, I've gone to Winfield many, many times. At Winfield it's humid, and you also play your guitar for 14 hours a day for 7 days, and about the third or fourth day, I always start thinking, gosh, this guitar is getting hard to play. Maybe it's the humidity. And I get my feeling gauges out and I measure the action, and I'll find out, no, I didn't move, so I'm getting tired, you know. But I proved it. I demonstrated, I measured it and said, the guitar hasn't moved, maybe just a little, but not significantly. So it's me. I'm getting tired. If I'm getting tired, maybe I better lay off a little bit, you know. First time I went to Winfield was in '94, and I played every waking hour. I was jamming, it seemed like. And when on the drive home, I thought, man, I thought I cut my wristband off. Well, I had tendinitis. And I got tendinitis from playing so much in this left hand here, and it took 3 months to get over that. And I just, the way I got over the tendinitis, for your information, was to just drink a lot of water. I drank a bottle of water every hour because I was working, you know, a real job. And so that gave me an excuse to go to the bathroom. And I would go to the bathroom that was the farthest away from where I was. It would take me 5 minutes round trip to make. And as I walked, I'd swing my arms like this, big swings, to get that blood flowing back in there. Drink a lot of water, swing my arms like this, get that blood flowing back in them. And yeah, it took a couple months and it was completely back to normal again, no surgery or anything. Anyway, point is, once you start thinking, oh, I'm tired, maybe you better stop, you know. Been there, done that. Okay, that's the value of measurements, okay? I'll splice this off in another section, maybe. God, I talk a lot. Okay, so let's see what we got here. 6th fret. What might our action be at the 6th fret? Well, it's a little higher than that, whatever that is. Let's see if I can get a, I don't think I can get a 6 in there. Let me see. I'm going to just take it between those two if I can't get the 6 in here. Oh, there it is. Man, that fits. I'm going to go one less than whatever this is. That fits if I squash the feeler gauges down. $65, so I'm going to take one less. I'm going to call it 64. Okay. So what happened here in the middle of the neck? We ended up with 0.10 of an inch more action. We ended up with about 0.14 of an inch. I keep forgetting that number. I need to write that down. 4 and 2, 16. 10 here. When we adjusted only the relief, we ended up with, and this is small. I mean, we went from 0.02 of an inch to 0.06 of an inch on relief. 0.04 of an inch on relief. That's small. Very small. We did that. Our action here at the 12th fret went up by 0.16 of an inch. That made it much, much harder to play up here. And you didn't gain anything. In fact, you lost clearance. Here, in the middle of the neck, our action went up by 0.10 of an inch. So you increased the relief by 4, the action went up by 10. So that means that it's going to take you 0.10 of an inch more effort to fret in the middle of the neck, and you gained nothing. In fact, fretting in the middle of the neck right here, you lost clearance. You had exactly the same clearance. You didn't gain or lose any clearance right here. All you did was make the guitar harder to play in the middle of the neck, and you gained nothing. That doesn't seem fair. You know, if I put ankle weights on and go jogging, I expect to gain something from it. I expect to gain conditioning. I expect to gain muscle. Now, making it harder on myself, I expect to gain something. But by increasing the relief, you make the middle of the neck harder to play, and you gain nothing as far as clearance goes. All right. That doesn't seem like a fair deal to me. Of course, you can do whatever you want. Again, some people like to feel that bounce, you know. Some people like to feel that increased pressure. I will say, you know, one of the comments I had on the relief business, they said it felt stiff when they had less relief. And I think that's because the strings are right there. Bam! And I think you're used to playing hard, so you play harder and you hit that. And once you develop a lighter touch, you come back in here to these and you feel like, golly, man, I got to push that string a long ways. 0.10 of an inch. That's pretty noticeable. You know, your fingers are very sensitive, especially when you get used to playing slinky stuff. But maybe you like that, you know. B.B. King liked to have a lot of relief because he liked the feel of that. Of course, he's playing electric guitar, you know, that's a different deal. You're doing string bends, which, you know, is a different deal. You like to feel that string so that your brain has time to recognize the fact that, oh, I'm on the string, and I get down here and I do my bend, and then I come off of it, you know. So, you know, as a player, I mean, you might like that, but you need to know that, you know. And you might want to consider trying something else just to see if it works for you. I do know, for instance, that towards the end of his career, Stevie Ray was using much lighter strings than he did early in his career. He was starting to get more of like, you know, maybe I don't need these heavy strings. A little bit more finesse, maybe. God, I hate to say that about Stevie, you know. But, but you know, people do change a little bit on their styles. That's a bad word to use, isn't it? I'm going to drop my action here down to about 0.84 of an inch like I talked about. And that's going to be 76 plus 8. And I'm going to make a slightly taller saddle. A little too much. God, I could just leave it right here. Let the owner have the nice, slow, super comfortable action. There we go. But the trouble is, he lives in Pennsylvania. No, New York. This guy's in New York. Summers get kind of humid up there, and right now I'm here in New Mexico at 8,500 feet. My humidity is 38% in the shop, but I also have a high altitude, and I've never seen this confirmed, but I logically think the air pressure is going to have an effect on the humidity, how the humidity is absorbed. So when you get down to New York and you're almost at sea level, you know, less than 1,000 feet, there's a lot more air pressure there than there is for me up here at 8,500 feet. And I don't know how that affects the humidity, but I suspect that it makes the humidity more efficient, more aggressive, forces the humidity in there. I don't know. It's something that's worth looking into someday. But I just have noticed that since I've got up here to Angel Fire, New Mexico, that seems like I have a little bit more trouble with action staying steady when they go back home to Pennsylvania and Ohio and New York and others, you know, lowland places. So, and I suspect because I'm at such a high altitude here. So I'm going to go ahead and set him up just a tiny bit higher because I anticipate that during the summer and after this guitar settles in and everything, I think, you know, things might change. So I'm going to give him a little bit more latitude. You know, if you set that action pretty low like that, yeah, you're on the razor edge there, you know. So, anyway, there's our study. Okay? So I hope I've demonstrated to you empirically with numbers why neck relief, or why I don't like neck relief. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing because, like I said, some players like neck relief. Some players, for their playing style, want that feel of neck relief. I don't. I want that neck to be, especially in the middle of the neck, I want the middle of the neck to be right there in my hand. I want the entire neck to feel the same so that if it's on an electric guitar, once I start playing up over the body, I don't want that to feel dramatically different in the middle of the neck. You know, and before I brought up like a banjo. Banjo has a super, super long neck with almost no heel at all. I said that wrong in the other video. They have a long neck with almost no heel at all. So it's almost like playing this yardstick here. And so when you have a bow in the neck, you've got the relief is more effective over the entire curve of the neck. And you got a lot of neck, and the relief on a banjo just drives me nuts. You know, I want a flat neck. I want it to feel the same no matter where I am on the neck. You know, you can have a little bit of relief, okay? But a mandolin is even more so. On the mandolin, you're playing here in the middle of the neck so much of the time with your chopped chords. And I want the middle of the neck. I don't want to reach down there on those mandolin strings that are, you know, got a scale that long, and they're tight strings. And man, relief on the mandolin just absolutely kills that mandolin for me. I want a flat neck. So it's the same all the way up and down the neck. And I have empirically demonstrated why I think that is a better idea. Okay? Alright, golly, this is a long video. A lot of information. I know this is going to go over a lot of people's heads. You got to sit down. You got to really think about this. You've got to study it. You know, remember I started doing this over 20 years ago, 22 years ago, and it was probably about year number 2 that I had the Gallagher guitar that I talked about in the other video, and it showed me that neck relief could be really, really bad. And that was an eye-opener for me, because I'd always heard this common wisdom, you need some neck relief. And what I saw from that guitar and the mandolin that same trip caused me to go home and figure out how I could quantify this. And that's what I did, and that data is on my website. several really important luthiers have looked at it and said, yeah, you know, you're right. They said, we've seen the same things anecdotally, you know, by experience and everything. We've seen this. You quantified it. So I feel pretty confident in my conclusions, and I fully agree that you got to sit down and analyze this and study it and put the physics to it, put the math to it, figure out what's going on with this neck. Okay? So, but at least the information's out there, okay? You can slog through it or not. Nobody said anything was easy, you know. If you're going to study quantum physics, you know, I don't expect you to get everything from a 20-minute video. It's going to take you a little time. Some things that are worth learning are kind of difficult to learn sometimes. So there we go, though. It's all on the tape. It's all on the video. You can come back and hash it. You can argue with me if you want to. Bye-bye.